is an issue that's affecting every city across this great country. And as we talk with other mayors from across the United States, they're all facing similar issues in their cities. And one thing I think that's powerful about this group of mayors is that these mayors are on the front lines every single day of homelessness, of police services, of fire services, of economic development, transportation. There's no shirking of responsibility or pointing fingers at different sides. They have to get things done. Homelessness is something that it has large societal issues that go into it, some of which the city government, in my view, can't necessarily get to. But I can tell you our approach in Gresham has been to try and lift people up and connect them with resources. For instance, we hired a social worker at the city of Gresham, which was the first time that we're traditionally a suburb of Portland. We haven't had issues like that before. So we hired a social worker to connect to people with resources. And one of the reasons that we did was because our law enforcement ended up being the mental health provider. And that's a horrible spot to put police officers in. It's a particularly horrible spot to put them in when you have limited resources and you take them out of the ability to do proactive police work. So that's one of the things that we've done that's been successful, is to connect people with resources. I will say that Chair Deborah Kafori in Multnomah County has been an excellent partner for us from the city of Gresham's perspective. We've also created what we call the Clean Start program, which is where we take homeless people and we actually give them a job to clean up the city. So we pay them to go out and clean up parts of the city, partially modeled after what Mayor Richard Berry's done in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that has been a great success. But homelessness, again, is probably one of the most vexing issues that any of us are facing, because there's so many different things that go into it. But one of the great benefits of us all getting together is we all have stories, we're all dealing with it. And so what works well in Tigard may work well in Wood Village, may work well in Portland, et cetera. And to Mayor Wheeler's point of us getting together and sharing that information, it's important. I feel like we're ahead of where we were with homelessness. I think we have a large way to go, at least from my city's perspective, and there are a lot of downward pressures, obviously, that are creating it economically. There's a piece of homelessness that thinks it's cool to camp and wants to be homeless, and so that's, you deal with that in a different way than you do with some of the others. But one of the tenets in our policy agenda is mental health. We know that affordable housing doesn't matter if you're drug and opiate addicted, and we don't solve that question. And I think the mental health piece is huge for homelessness. And if we can't admit that there's a huge drug epidemic that's happening on the streets, and we need to get some resources to that is driving some of the root causes of a particular subset of homelessness. So no golden bullet to any of it, but we're all working hard on it. And I know each mayor has different success stories in their community too.
Could I go on a rant on
Yes.
this for a second? I know some people need to get upstairs for other meetings, so I'll be as quick as I can. Local government in America right now is the dumping ground for all of society's problems. And Mayor Bemis just hinted at a couple. We have an opioid addiction issue in this nation we have not come to grips with. We have a heroin addiction issue we have not come to grips with. Our community-based mental health safety net in the United States is an embarrassment amongst industrialized nations, so we're seeing a lot of people on our streets who in other countries would probably be receiving intensive intervention. The support from the federal government for housing through HUD since the 1980s has collapsed by about 85%. The resources that used to come from the federal government down to local governments to help support people at the lower end of the income spectrum, that has dried up. And so these folks here are now the front line in supporting all of those issues, in addition to some of the economic problems that are tipping more and more families into homelessness. Through the joint office, the city, Multnomah County, partners like the city of Gresham and others, we actually moved 4,500 people off the streets last year. The problem is probably more than that ended up on the streets last year. So our job, and the reason we are coming down to Salem, and the reason we are speaking as a block, even though we don't agree on everything, is we need a voice. We need the state government And we need the federal government to understand this is not a local government problem, and this cannot be solved by local government alone, or even the resources in the private and the philanthropic sector at the local level. If we really want to solve the homeless crisis in the United States and in our own communities here, then we need state government as a full partner, and we need the federal government as a full partner. And what you're seeing here is the beginning of the unification at the local level. To be honest, we're not going to take it anymore. We know we don't have the resources, and we need help, and we're asking for it, and that's why we're unifying.
How much are the local municipalities engaging with the CCOs to tap Medicaid money for some of those behavioral health issues?
Aggressively. I am very concerned by, this is really about state government today, but as you see what's going on with the Oregon Health Authority and their struggles with Medicaid dollars from Washington, I'll get to Washington through that circuitous route. I am very concerned that the resources that nonprofit organizations are currently using to provide support services and housing for the most chronically homeless in our communities is going to start to dry up. If the nonprofits don't have those resources that they can apply for to help support their services, that's just going to exacerbate a problem that's already large in our communities. So you're going to hear us being more aggressive on that point.